Hey, what's going on, everyone? It is David Palmer, Leo King, and Rich Lopp here for the Awakening Experience, the Five of Swords. Good to be back, man. It's been a minute.
Yeah, man. Did you have a good time off?
I did. I had a good time off. What about you?
Yeah, it's been pretty chill, pretty cool. But we need that time off sometimes. Like with my line of work, I have this thing set up to where I feel it out, and I assign myself time off. Because there's been times, I don't see how you do it, dude. I just sit back and watch you sometimes, and I'm like, how the hell do you do that? Maybe it's because I'm a projector. Maybe. I don't know what it is, right. But if I go too long trying to do too much with no time off, like my brain starts misfiring so bad, I can't even string two thoughts together, you know?
I get there, too. I feel like that kind of goes well with Five of Swords, but it's kind of more Ten of Wands. But also there's the Five of Swords thing where you kind of become too determined and... Yeah. It's also like, I think I'll be able to handle all of it, but it's like, work-wise, yes. It's when the personal life shit gets in life, where I don't know how to gauge personal life stuff well. It's like, well, it's my best friend's funeral. That's 2 weeks away. I can do all this stuff. Oh, yeah, and then our baby shower for the first baby I've ever had in my life. Mm-hmm. And the in-laws coming in. And, all these other things. I don't know how to gauge personal life. Mission, yes. Personal life mixed with mission, but that's actually in my astrology, which is kind of funny.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you probably have more of a personal life than me, anyway. Like I have such a tiny circle of not very many people, and like I don't have much of a personal life, so pretty much my whole life is just work, and that's it. So I could see that. I don't think I would be able to handle having a circle of like friends, like we're friends with one person, right. Who's somebody who's very spiritually awakened. And then there's you. And so that's like two people outside of my wife and kids. And that's it. Other than that, we have no friends. We don't go anywhere. We don't do anything. We sit at home and work and
garden.
Yeah. That's my escape outside of this.
Mine too. Mine's the jacuzzi, being the pool guy. I know you have a pool, so doing the pool.
Yeah.
I'm not going to hire a pool guy. It's like throwing chlorine in and shit. And then I told Sophia yesterday, this is the first time in my life I've ever maintained a garden that we planted ourselves. I'm like, wow. But it's been fun. It's been like watching. We had a rose bush that we bought tree, and it hadn't bloomed yet. And boom, they're starting to bloom. Mm-hmm. I'm just like, damn. It's like, it's working.
Yeah, it's fun stuff. That's fun stuff, And it always reminds me of back in the day. You remember like around 2017 when the whole veganism thing started popping off?
Yeah.
And a lot of people in the spiritual community, especially in the spiritual community, like, who are vegans will come down on you for killing the animals. And it's like, I sit back and I think, if you're an individual who thinks that a plant is less conscious than an animal, you're not very spiritually awake.
No,
because like plants are very conscious.
Yeah.
Like they even did a scientific study of trees. Trees have the ability. They know what color your shirt is.
Yeah. They
can see you standing up to 10 feet away from them, and they can detect the color of your shirt. Like plants are very conscious and they're very aware. Probably more so than we are.
I agree. Whenever I'm in the redwoods, the biggest trees in the world. I've done horoscopes there too. It's on my YouTube. Like it's like being with like thousands of elders watching you. Mm-hmm. It's fucking gnarly, but it's beautiful. But when it gets to this Five of Swords card, I know it's probably one of the harder cards for, I think, beginning tarot people to get into, because it's a 5. It's in the middle of the deck. It's in the swords. It comes between two pretty positive cards, too. The swords aren't the most positive ones, People get the 3 of Swords and they go, oh, my God. And then they look at the 4 of Swords like, well, that doesn't look too bad. But, there's 7 of Swords we've already covered. There's 9 of Swords, which looks terrifying. Like, there's a lot of terrifying swords cards. But 5 of Swords, I think sometimes people can get it. Maybe they just skip over it. I've noticed people just skip over it.
Yeah.
I've watched people on YouTube skip over it too, just kind of be like, and then they'll talk about something else.
Yeah. Well, I used to see, back when I was just a tarot viewer, I would see a lot of people like they would throw the Five of Swords out, and they would give it basically the same meaning as the Five of Wands, just like conflict, you know? And I can remember when I was learning the tarot, the first phrase that pops up in my mind and that I saw in the book that I was studying was defeat at all cost. So when I see the Five of Swords, the first thing I think is determined. Very, very determined. Like, I'm going to get what I want. And there's nothing intrinsically wrong with that. But the Five of Swords energy is more like, I'm going to get whatever I want, and I don't care what I have to do to get it. Right. I don't care who I have to lie to, who I have to fuck over, who I have to manipulate. I'll play dirty. And seeing that energy pop up in a reading, it's you got to feel out the rest of the energy around it, because sometimes, depending on what else comes out, like, it can be a positive thing, you know? Like, it's not always all that bad, but I look at it as like the sister to the Seven of Swords. It's still shady, you know?
Yeah, there was somebody in High Vibe said, plants don't run away screaming, though. And that's two different entire aspects. And I just said, relax.
Exactly.
I mean, to me, it's like...
That's what I'm talking about. Like, that mentality right there, you know? It's exactly what I'm talking about.
It's very like, it's still doing the same deed.
Yeah, doing the exact same deed.
I mean, it's like, I had to put my cat down 4 months ago. It's like, yeah, I'm going to let the doctor do it. Or if you're out in the woods, you give him a dog or a cat its last meal, and you take a shotgun to the back of its head, and it doesn't remember.
Yeah.
I mean, plants, you think it's nice when all these companies that are making all the vegetables and stuff come through with their tractors and just be like, oh, we're going to have a nice day, and it's getting stampled on, and they're getting trampled on and fucking cut. You don't think they're screaming?
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm talking about right there. Like,
I know.
Like, oh, it's different because I can see it and it has eyes and it can scream. Well, not every animal can fucking scream.
I know.
You know what I'm saying? A bug's not going to scream. You know, you stomp on a bug, it ain't going to scream. There's a lot of living things that aren't going to scream. So it doesn't mean it doesn't feel it, you know? It's just...
Yeah, there's a lot of humans with these huge alien blood clots coming out that they don't scream before they pass, too. And they got a nice little smiley little Band-Aid to put on their fucking arm before that happened. Mm-hmm. But I think that's the whole point, too. Five of Swords tries to push its agenda. I think it's like it's going to push it no matter what and be like, you know, you must be this.
Yeah.
That's one example, right? Like, you must be vegan or you must eat meat. Like, there's a battle between which one's right or wrong. There is no, what works for you? Because the problem in the Five of Swords is everybody is walking away from the guy. Mm-hmm. Right? It's like, if you're just saying, it's just tarot, it's just astrology, it's just this, it's just Jesus Christ, but through this church, in this form of it, what about the other forms of that? Or what about all these other religions? I mean, you know, like, that's where it's kind of an interesting card, because it is one of those places when you're just sitting there screaming alone and telling everybody the way it must be. If we're talking about a collective conscious that needs to wake up, the last card in the world that you want to be playing out in your own spiritual frequency would be the Five of Swords. You're not going to get anybody's attention.
Yeah, yeah. No, and I think, see, one thing I think a lot of people need to understand too is that in all areas, facets, and aspects of life, like, there is no one size fits all for humans. There's different blood types. There's you know, even the human design. I'm getting into looking at that now, seeing how different the energy centers are inside of humans. Like, we are an experiment. Like, every last one of us, no matter where we're from, our race, we're all a genetic experiment. You know, the beings came to this planet hundreds of thousands of years ago and created a slave race. They took the hominids that were already here and tinkered with the genetics until they came up with us. And then whenever they split off to go rule over different regions of Earth, they said, okay, well, we're going to brand our humans. That's what I learned that from Billy Carson. Like, that's where different races come from.
Right.
You know, we didn't naturally evolve into different races. You know, I'm not white because my ancestors used to live in the snow.
Right.
Dark-skinned people aren't dark because their ancestors spent time out in the sun. Like these different rulers that ruled over different regions of Earth wanted to brand their cattle.
Yeah.
So they got in there and tinkered with the DNA just enough to create a 2% variance in race so that you would be able to tell those are my people.
Yeah.
So we're all different. It's not like if you're a human walking around on 2 legs, you must eat vegetables. Or if you're a human walking around on 2 legs, you must eat meat. It's like, no, we're all different.
We're all different.
Yeah.
Well, now you have to throw in bugs, right? And you must eat bugs, right? Or lab-grown meat, or lab-grown vegetables that are made into vaccines, which they're doing right now. Mm-hmm. So it's like we're all in this together. I think the weird part about the Five of Swords is there's the Four of Swords before it, which is a super spiritual card to me. I mean, that card, I can't wait to do that one because there's a lot of deep esoteric meaning in that card. With the stained glass window, it's before the battle, and it's also after if you survive. It's weird. About understanding that you have a place in life where people care about you, the universe is with you. So it's like, it's such a weird jump from the Four of Swords to the Five of Swords because it's like this peaceful in God's house laying down. The coffin's weird. You used to lay in your coffin before war and say your prayers, right? Because if you made it back to your kids and your wife and all that stuff, then you would be thankful and blessed when you got back. Or at least when you die and you end up in that coffin, you at least had your blessings and your gratefulness because that's your last time in there to say that. That's what's weird about the Four of Swords. And then it just goes to the fucking maniac that's just like trying to fucking push for what it wants. Or if you're determined to go do things, because let's be real, how much fucked up shit happened over the last 3 years? So the Five of Swords is that one where it's like, no, I'm not going to consent to something I don't want to consent to, that I'm being forced to take, that's going to take away my life physically in this crazy game they want you to play. So if it comes from a spiritual place, I feel like the Five of Swords can be used in positives in that determination. You said that you feel like it's got a lot of determination.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, because I'm always, all the clients that I coach, a lot of people come to me wanting to know about manifestation. And, a lot of times, especially if you have some sort of materialistic goal, like to start a business or whatever the case may be, it's going to require determination. You got to get in there and you got to get on the path and you got to start going. You got to be determined.
Yeah.
And that energy of being determined, where I'm going to get what I want, there's 2 different paths up the mountain. I think we talked about this for the Seven of Swords too. Similarly, there's more than one path up the mountain, but the easy path up the mountain is the one where there's a lot of immoral shit. I can cut this corner by lying to this person.
Right.
Or I can cut that corner by ripping this person off, And the hardest path up the mountain is when you're doing everything morally right.
Right.
So if you can maintain that determination to where I'm going to get what I want, but you stay on the right moral path, you'll still make it up the mountain. It'll just be twice as hard.
That's true. And that's where it's a weird thing, because it's like that card, he's got a smile on his face.
Yeah.
So it's like he's happy that they're walking away. I know, we've got...
Yeah, I was about to grab one.
Yeah, there's 2 decks right there. But I feel like that's where it's an interesting part of the other 2 walking away. So sometimes I've also looked at it as you're dealing with losers card. Right? Like, not gonna lie, like I've looked at it like maybe you're just dealing with people who are just like really woke. That would be the new version of it. Like, somebody saying my body, my choice, but no, you must get a vax. Like, I'll pull a Five of Swords on them. Like, no, both of us are my body, my choice.
Yeah.
And then they walk away. Oh. So there is that weird grin. And what's weirder is the Six of Swords. After it's an interesting placement, because it's like if you go to the Wands, it's kind of, people I think can associate it, like you said earlier, almost like it's a conflict with the Five of Swords, and there is conflict. But there's a much more intellectual understanding, and that's why I look at it as like my truth and your truth are different. It's also interesting too because he's got 3 of the swords, and then there's 2 that are the other 2 that have fallen down. And then we see that with the 7 of swords, right? It's like he takes the 5 swords, leaves, or I think he takes 5 swords and leaves 2 or whatever. So there is a kind of a weird connection because he does. I don't know. And there is clouds in the sky. That's the other weird part of it. So there's definitely some shadiness around it, or like you said, the moral compass part. That's so important because I feel like we all do it in life. One guy's honestly having a panic attack in the background. I just realized that. He's looking and he's like this, you know? So sometimes, you know, we fight for our position in life and sometimes it doesn't do positive onto others. And then it looks like the other guy's noble enough to just be like, I ain't even going to deal with this piece of shit, or I'm not going to deal with this person.
Yeah, yeah. Well, as a matter of fact, when that comes out for me for advice, a lot of times, what I'll say is pick and choose your battles wisely. Because on your journey up the mountain, you are not going to win every battle, period. Nobody who goes from the bottom to the top wins every single battle on their way up. And it's all about knowing when to throw the white towel in and say, okay, fine, you can have this one. You can have this one. If you want to be the king of the bottom of the mountain, you can have this one. Right. I'm going up there.
Right.
So I'll forfeit a battle if it means shedding this vibrational weight off me so I can continue my journey upwards. Is that kind of what you meant?
Yeah, I think so, because if you think of the 6 of Swords, it's the woman who's now, I don't know, maybe she's leaving this guy and divorcing this guy because he's such a piece of shit and getting the fuck out of Dodge and going on the river to go to the other side. So there is a weird thing in life where I feel like this card reminds me of where we all, because I love that you bring up the moral compass part. We all fail. We all say the thing we shouldn't have said. We all do that action. And I'm not talking crazy action. We're talking like, I shouldn't have maybe said that to you, or I shouldn't have fucking not called you back, or I shouldn't have tried to push my fucking feelings more on you. I feel like it's a card where we all want to get to a place, and I think it's more of the unconscious aspect. Because the card prior to it is so conscious, it's aware, it's still. There's definitely not a stillness, and there's also kind of a, I wanna get this win. And sometimes in life you have to learn boundaries of like, is it worth the energy? Because it could take a lot of our energy in life when we're trying to prove ourselves. I think that's going into human design. It's the mechanics, which is what Ra, the creator, talked, that we all are mechanically, spiritually. There's a mechanical aspect to the universe, and all of us souls have our own unique mechanic. And it's just like, here's how it works, here it is. It's pretty simple. If you do the strategy and authority, you'll win. And I think when you look at the mechanics of life, it's like, are we going to always push our boundaries to try and win a battle that isn't worth it? I think there's very few moments when this card really means like you're on the righteous part. This could be like unconscious righteousness too, you know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, like when it comes to that determination, I think we fixed signs kind of have to learn that the hard way. At least I know I did, and a lot of the fixed signs I know had to learn the hard way that, you know, that determination and that stubbornness can be your greatest asset or your biggest liability. And like, there's been many, many times in my life where, I've pushed that energy into the ground to where I'm fighting a battle that, no, it's not worth it. It's not worth it at all. But just out of my own ego, I want to get this win. No, I'm going to get my way. I'm going to prove my point, to the point to where like I'm digging my own grave, you know? And I don't know. No matter what path you're on in life, at some point in time, you're going to have to throw in the white towel and say, no, never mind. I don't need that. You can have it. And learning when to do that, I think, especially for a fixed sign or somebody with a lot of fixed energy in their chart, can be very beneficial, I think.
That's true. It's funny because the vegan person in here is now setting curses on everybody who are meat eaters until they become vegan. I just said, you should probably just relax and just get out of the room and go rethink right now. This is a very Five of Swords moment happening to everybody in the community because, I mean, that's a good example. I'm going to set a curse on you until you do what I want you to do.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, which that kind of brings me into the weird voodoo aspect. Like, it's like there's maybe this wanting to have dominion over somebody else that this card can have. And I think I told you earlier when I was doing love readings and I looked at this card, I always looked at this as like somebody who has not spiritually awoke yet either.
Yeah.
It's the card of the NPC that's in the Matrix just trying to grind and win no matter what, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, it's not worth it. I'm telling you, it's not worth it. Throwing black magic at somebody is not worth it because it's coming back. It's coming back. And it's funny that you said that because over the past couple of days, I've been thinking about doing a live on my main channel talking about energetic attacks.
Yeah.
You know, because I get that all the time in my inboxes and in my comment section. You know, I'm being energetically attacked. And I'm like, man, that's been happening to me for 5 years now. And it's not something that you want to feed fear into. Don't feed fear to it. You can reject an energetic attack if you can feel it coming on. You reject it and say, this is not my energy. It's not welcome here. It's not needed here. I'm returning it back to wherever it came from with love and light. And it will be returned to the sender.
Yeah.
You don't want to return it with anger and bitterness.
No.
You return it with love and light because whatever frequencies you're casting are coming back to you.
Yes, they are.
This matrix functions like a machine. You know, it's not a punishment if you do something bad. It's not a reward if you do something good. It's just set up like a machine. It's like a video game. Whatever frequencies you're throwing out there are coming back to you. That's just the way it goes out and then it comes back.
Yeah.
So if you're throwing negative energy at somebody on purpose because you're mad at them, that's coming back threefold.
It's coming back. And I think when you talk about, we all have moments where we could be frustrated at somebody or we could be like, I would say frustrated, but that's the line where you're like, you know what? It's about a surrender, a let go. Because I think that it's the other two people in this card that teach us how to be more than the person holding the swords, right? It's like they both, well, one of them gets too emo. The other one just is like, I'm noble and I don't even know why I'm dealing with. He's got a much better, he's got like a robe on him. So it looks like he's more, let's just say he's got his manifestation a lot better. And he went, oh, okay, good sign. This person's not worth my time. The frustration's not worth it. Let me go focus on something better because it's also a card of focus, almost too much focus from the guy that's holding it, right? So it's like, I think that you brought it up best. It's like sometimes losing a battle, which is not even really losing, it's just separating from a battle is the ultimate win.
Yeah.
I like how you brought up that the energy that we put out, we're going to get back. So it's like one of those things where it's like, there's no excuse in life unless it gets to some pretty extreme situations to where you have to say something. And even in those cases, it's just, you just have to defend yourself, not go on offense against it. Now, the offense one, that's, I think, a different card. I don't think that this is a card of going on offense. Like, I'm going to go attack these people and go make them believe what I want to believe. I'm going to go throw the energy out that I want it to come back to me. Actually, you know what? The unconscious part of this is they don't even realize what energy is coming back to
Yeah,
them.
I know. That's the thing about it.
Yeah.
That's the part that's so sad about it because every time I see somebody or hear of somebody who's throwing negative energy at somebody like that, the way I look at them, have you ever been shopping at the store and you see a little 4-year-old kid ask mommy for a candy bar and she says no, and he falls on the ground, flops around, throws a fit? That's how I see people who throw black magic at people. They're
Or hate. Or hate.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But yeah, it's like throwing a temper tantrum because you didn't get your way. And that little kid has no idea that he's sabotaging himself. He has no idea that he's attacking himself. He has no clue. And like, I think the people who misuse energy like that are kind of along the same lines. You know, they have no idea. They're so energetically ignorant. They don't know that they're sabotaging themselves. They have no clue.
Yeah, and I think, I'm glad that you brought up the black magic part again, because it's like black magic is not something to be afraid of as coming towards you. It's going to get thrown back into their face. You don't have to do anything. You don't need to throw some protective shield up. That's like you have to do, right? Like, because you think somebody's throwing something at you, it's going to come right back at them. Because I do feel like that's what's important. People get too afraid because there's one guy in here who's just having a bad day. He got over-triggered. Like, it reminds me of that stupid expression, but it's really true. It's like, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me.
Yeah.
And we live in a world right now where, man, when it comes to the energy of fucking words hurting people, that's the problem. I mean, if you think of the last 3 years, too, more people were too afraid of what to say or what was said, but they had no problem lining up to go get fucking sticks and stones breaking their bones. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, that's what's so wild to me. It's like, that's where I think the problem is in manifestation today and in consciousness, is we're dealing with this whole entire, cancel culture. This is the card of cancel culture. I'm canceling you. You're not doing what I want to do. You're not saying it, or it's the expectation. It's so funny, like dudes, especially who have jealousy issues. It's a card, I think, of jealousy too, where it's like, when they have a girl, it's like they just get crazy. I always use Pablo Francisco's example, my favorite comedian, where he's just like to his girl that he's obsessed with, that he's jealous of. It's like, she's like, I'm going to get something to eat. And he's like, didn't you eat yesterday?
Yeah.
Like, that's what it is.
Man. I mean, there are still grown-ass men, though, our age, in their 30s, who are still like that. I
know.
Like, I get readings about it all the time. Like, we were at the store, and somebody said hi to me, and I said hi, and now I'm in trouble. It's like, oh my God, dude, that's high school shit, man. Back in high school, I can remember back in the day when, late teens, early 20s, getting jealous and whatnot. But, man, when you're a grown-ass man, dude, that shit's got to go. Your relationship ain't going nowhere. If your woman can't even walk around in public,
I know.
Like, it's sad, dude.
This isn't Iran. This isn't Iran, which I love the Iranian people, but, it's sad what happens in really 100% Islamic law countries, like to women. But, this is a personal story just in the last 3 weeks. Like, my best friend died, and of course, we had a circle of friends that was from high school and even past high school. And one of them didn't show up, and he was right up there as best friend. And he gave, it's not Seven of Swords or it's being shady. It's just like, nah, I just didn't want him to ever come into my life and fuck it up, because he was, of course, he had problems with addiction. But, when you're friends with somebody for 25 years, you're going to be compassionate and try and help them and be positive. But instead, he took the action of, no, I have a family now and I don't ever want to talk to you anymore. Even though they're friends for 25 years. He didn't even come to the funeral. And basically all the hundreds of people that showed up were like, I cannot believe this guy's not here. He tried to do this Five of Swords. Like, well, I got to go work 3 weeks before. He couldn't take the day off work. People from all over the place took Friday off. I did. And I don't ever take day offs.
Yeah.
And I feel like some people could be like, I'm righteous. I don't like the way that somebody is anymore, and I don't want him to affect my life. Like, I have a family or I have kids. It's like, he's not going to fucking show up at your house and fucking as an addict and do anything. And he wouldn't do that. Like, so it can also be where people make up stories of what people can be when there's no, our best friend would never do that. He would never just show up to your house unannounced.
Yeah.
With a problem, and so he created that story in his head and gave every excuse of why, no, I'm not going to that, and trying to be bold and prove himself as like, see, I was right or something, which is actually really sad, because it's like, dude, that was your best fucking friend. That was your best friend. And everybody knew it. And so when you have like all of us from high school and prior and after and even before in elementary school, all of us going, I cannot believe he fucking did that. And we're not doing it from this place of like, I can't believe this motherfucker. It's more just like, wow, do some people just forget about people and come up with a story? So that's what's weird about this card is I feel like stories can be made up about the presumptions of how somebody is, where they're at their life, and then push them out of their life. I see that more than actually what's happening. You know, coming up with the story to fit your narrative. Mm-hmm. You know?
Yeah. With something like that, I would probably, I almost don't feel safe giving my 2 cents on that because I feel like I would need to know the situation more.
Of course. Yeah.
Because, like, I could totally understand on one hand, like, I'm better in my life, I'm doing better, and, you know, if you're staying on that old frequency, bye-bye. I can understand that. But, like, if you say, like, it was very clearly not like that,
yeah,
you know, so that would be kind of hard for me to give an opinion on.
He never caused a problem in his life once or did anything wrong, and he never brought his issues to his friends. So it's like, you know, like he was... The guy wouldn't be who he is without the guy who just passed.
Oh.
Period. In every way of his life. So it's like, you know, it would be, I mean, it's like how you see Mike Pence now and Trump. That's the first time you've ever seen a president and vice president split and run against each other.
Oh, shit.
Nobody's talking about that. You know what I mean? But this is longer than that. But also there was no split. He didn't even get an option or choice. It was just like he just wanted. It's like he wanted. He's the kind of guy who's like, I told you it's like he would never say this, but that's what he means because in everything he always wanted to be the guy who proved everybody right. Like I told you he would die.
Okay. Yeah.
Even though it's your best friend of 25 years. Like what? So it's like trying to fit his narrative or something. But I think to take it into outer context, I see that all the time, right? It's like, well, you know, they're doing this now and they're probably doing that. So I'm just like creating a story out of nowhere and pushing people away. Because there's also just the simple fact that this is the only card where you really see somebody pushing people away. Mm-hmm. You know, and like, how else are you going to... It's also a card of like, I don't want help. I can do it myself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's also a card of sabotage, too. That's another word that comes up. And I wish I would have thought of that when we were over there thinking of the title, sabotage. You know, like, and it's usually jealousy, sabotage out of jealousy. Like, I'll see that come up. That's another thing I'll see come up in readings a lot is, you know, two people are in a relationship. And when two people are in a relationship and it's toxic, obviously both people are pointing the finger at each other, right? But what tells the truth about who the toxic one is? What happens when they break up? Because if one person is indeed the toxic one and the other person is not, there's going to be a big spotlight shining on that when they break up. Because when they split, the toxic one is going to go keep repeating the same cycle over and over and over. And the one who's non-toxic is going to go find a happy relationship. Right. Well, the toxic person knows that they're the toxic person. So a lot of times you'll see it where they'll put forth so much energy and effort into sabotaging that other person. Right. Any new relationship, spread rumors about them. You know, they'll spy on their social media and see, oh, you're talking to that person. Well, I'm going to create a fake account and I'm going to show up in their inbox and say, oh, I'm their ex and we just fucked last night, you know, and sabotage. That's a card of sabotage. Shady, sneaky, shitty fucking low life.
Well, I'm glad that you went there because, like, that's really, I think, the root of this card is when people go into that space where it's tunnel vision, and it's a tunnel vision that takes away morals, and honestly, it's like a takeover. So I think that this card can also be where you let yourself let your mind take over, and your emotional aspect of yourself is picking those negative frequency feelings and then finding a way to act them out. Mm-hmm. You know, it's like, oh, my pain, because there's something about pain with this too. It's like my pain body remembers this without realizing I'm the one who caused the pain body, the sabotage, and I'm going to act out that pain body onto another person. And that's sad because that happens a lot.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, that's kind of like a golden rule of thumb is that, and you hear this all the time. It sounds cliche, but people always want to make you feel how they feel. So when somebody is genuinely happy and uplifted, they try to make you happy and lift you up. If somebody's motivated and driven and successful, they want to help you become motivated, driven, and successful. But when somebody feels stupid and worthless, they try to make you feel stupid and worthless. And I always find myself having to remind people who are nothing but good to everybody that they come across. And there's so many people that are just doing them wrong. And I'm like, dude, you have to understand that when somebody's attacking you, and especially if you're doing nothing but good, that there's something deep-seated that's wrong with them inside. For some reason, I don't understand why. I just did a video about this the other day where so many people out there want other people to suffer just because they're suffering.
Yeah.
I can never wrap my mind around that. Like, I've always been like, I know what suffering feels like, so I don't want you to go through that. But there are some very sick people out there who think, well, I'm suffering, well, then you have to suffer too. Just
it's horrible.
Yeah.
But it is like where he's got that smiling face where there's some souls who had really good past lives. And then this life, they're going to go be this because they haven't experienced it yet. So it also is the aftermath, this card, right? Of something that's happened. So it reminds me of the moment we're in. Like, what the fuck just happened over the last few years? This is the Fauci card. It's safe, effective, and you're going to do what we're telling you to do. And no, there won't be a mandate for this for this shot. Oh, wait, no, yeah, there's mandates. So the way that he's taking everybody's swords away and like, haha, I'm winning, right? And so you could have been the person who just didn't even pay attention and walked away, or you could have been the person like, okay, I'm giving you my sword. I'll do whatever you want. And then you have the fucktard, the Fauci card, the Boris Johnson card, the Newsom card, the fucking DeSantis card. I'm going to lock you all down. DeSantis did it too. So it's like, I'm going to tell everybody what they need to do, and I'm going to lie. And I'm going to coerce everything to go my way, and I'm going to take what I want from you at the same time. And the aftermath of this is the looking at like, well, people are doing that right now. Like you're seeing just everything pop up right now, just like how much happened. So it does all come back to people. And right now we're watching that. It took a long time, but it's accelerating like crazy right now. But in the moment when you're doing it, you're like, it reminds me of that card where you're like, well, you know what? I'll do this. I'll deal with that karma another day. I'll get the satisfaction now, and I'll pay for it later. This is the credit card, bad karma card, where the interest rate is not even worth having the card. The interest rate's too high, and you won't be able to pay it back. And the sabotage you talk about is bankrupting your soul, basically.
Yeah. Did you, I hate to change the subject, but I just thought of this when you were talking about that a minute ago. Did you happen to see, this was, I think, 2 years ago. I saw this video that was floating around the truth community saying that Gavin Newsom was arrested. And
I remember that.
Somebody asked Alexa, and Alexa said, you know, yes, Gavin Newsom was arrested for something to do with children. And I went, really? So I pulled my phone out. I'll find it, and I'll send it to you. Where I walked up and I said, hey, Alexa, was Gavin Newsom arrested? And she said, Gavin Newsom was arrested on October something for something to do with children. And I'm like, and I got it. I'll find it and I'll send it to you. I didn't know
I had heard about that.
Yeah.
But I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if, again, like we remember he disappeared for like 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And of course, there was the stories that, you know, he got fucking Bell's palsy, right, from the shot when he got his booster, because he got his booster and then he disappeared for 6 weeks. Didn't even talk to the state of California, just like as if he was gone. So there was that, but then, it, you know, to me, it could be more like, oh, okay, he's being arrested and they're trying to keep it out of the... Those fucking dark people will do everything they can to try and make it look good. And that's the hard part is like, I don't trust people who have that like, I'm such a good person. Where they tell you they're a good person, like, I never get mad. I never do this. But the second that you come into their world, they do the opposite.
Yeah.
If somebody's telling you what they are, they are it.
Yeah.
Right? But it's funny because it could be kind of a trickster card in the sense of it's like, I would never do you wrong. It's like, well, you don't know that for sure. But if you're like, I'm a good person and you're communicative on every aspect of life, then that's where it is just if you're transparent. This is a card where it feels like the transparency of who somebody is really comes out when it gets tense. So tension brings out the morals. Tension brings out the truth of somebody. And whether or not they did that 4 swords prior, where they're in alignment with the universe, God, their spiritual self, they've come into contact with their soul. This is a card where when tension comes, do you forget that? I mean, I guess on the battlefield, if it comes to do or die, you're gonna win in the end. Like you're gonna be killed or be killed. So, that's the hard part about this card, though, is like nobody is dying in this card. So it really isn't a war card. It's not even like they're in a battle either. It's like just on a beach.
Yeah.
So it kind of just reminds me of the piece of shits that get on the beach and try and act all cool and push over the little guys, right? It's the bully. It's the bully.
Yeah, no, they say that you don't know who somebody is until they don't get what they want. And psychology says, and I tell my clients this all the time, I don't know how true it is. Looking back, on my story, I have evidence that supports this, but psychology says that a person can't really wear a mask for longer than 90 days, 3 months. So, I mean, if you're really close to somebody,
Right.
especially like dating somebody, obviously we always want to put our best foot forward in the beginning. But within a 3-month period, a person's true colors will start to bubble up to the surface.
Yep.
And some people say, that's not true. That person had me fooled for a whole year. And I'm like, well, you were stupid then. You were ignoring the red flags. Because when I look back, I don't know, maybe you could correct me if I'm wrong, but from my experience, looking back, within a 3-month period, everybody I've ever connected with that ended up being really, really shady, their colors started showing within a 3-month time period.
Yeah, because if you take astrology with Venus is a very fast planet, second fastest planet, but it goes through a sign in less than 30 days when it's at full speed. So you're going to see it go, because of the way it goes around the zodiac, its happiest place, Taurus, let's say if it was in Taurus, its happiest place. Their self-worth, they look beautiful, then it goes into Gemini where it neutralizes pretty quick within that 90 days where, okay, this is how they think about things. This is how they deal with communicating their values. And then it goes into Cancer. Maybe this is where the emotions come out about how, I'm not getting what I want, or I don't know how to self-care or whatever. And then you're coming into Leo in that 90 days and, okay, do they love themselves? They don't love themselves. Or they have a self-worth issue. Or da-da-da-da. So Venus, if you do it from another place, from Scorpio, where it's at its detriment, it's like, oh, shit, this person's obsessive. We're obsessed. Then it goes into Sag. Where's their beliefs on it? Then it goes into Capricorn. Oh, God, like, do they even put value on their work or their mission? So Venus can always teach you about somebody, but that's the worst when you see these shotgun relationships. Like, if they haven't made it past that 90 days, I would say 120 with Venus to do at least all 4 signs for sure, and be like, oh, okay, I've gone through all the elements and I've seen all the elements that they've been through. And there's usually a high and a low in those elements throughout the zodiac of the 12. In any of those 4 quadrants, there's going to be a high and a low. Venus is the only planet that has the essential dignities of a high and a low all over the place. So it's like, especially since we're coming to a Venus retrograde, it's ironic that it's a 40-day, 40-night transit, right? So in the Bible, it's the 40 days and 40 nights. I mean, we can go on forever, but there is that reflective view about people where it's like, especially if you're trying to get in a relationship during a Venus retrograde, it's like that 40 days you can't see Venus. The Sun and Venus are together, so we can't see Venus. So she hides. And so I think that when it comes to people's self-worth and value, it's like the fake it till you make it is this card too. People can fake it till they make it in a relationship. Like, oh yeah, I do this, I do that, I do that. Oh yeah, I've got a lot of money. I feel bad for all those chicks who go for sugar daddies out there. You know what I mean? Because they're like, I got it all. They do something, and it's like they just maxed out a credit card just to show off, and then not this month, honey. But you got to be with me still. You know?
Yeah.
There's a lot of that.
That's so funny that you said that, because I just recorded a video 2 days ago. I don't think I posted it, though, about fake it till you make it. Because that is a phrase that is so controversial. Because some people say that's garbage advice, you know. And the way I look at it, if you're on a manifestation path, you got to think about, because everybody always gets hung up on the part of affirmations and self-talk. You know, like, oh, I'm just lying to myself. Well, am I going to affirm something that's not true? Well, if you look at the definition of a lie, the definition of a lie is to intentionally mislead someone from the truth just to hide the truth. So the truth can still exist over here. You're just not aware of it. So if I'm affirming something that's not true in the moment, this is where you have to go in with your intentions. My intention is that one of these days, this is going to be the truth, you know? So I thought it was funny that you said that, because for a couple of days now, I've had that rolling around in my head. I think, though, that would probably be the negative fake it till you make it. I think there's two ways to look at that.
I do too. I think it's like, I used to use that expression, but I think it's more like, no, I'm going to embody myself that I am this.
Yeah.
And the idea of the faking it till you make it is more of like, act as if you already are it when you're not. When really you already are it. You're just at the very beginning of the of finally owning the position. So it's really not faking it. It's just like you're being it till you make it. But you're finally putting on the truth within yourself. You're ready to own the value within yourself. So it's like maybe we can come up with a new term for it, you know. But I definitely feel like you're right. Like the negative fake it till you make it. Like I'm all this and nothing. You know, it's just kind of like, well, you know, that's where receipts come in. You know, it's like, where's your time? Where's your receipts? Because it almost feels like this card can be like, I see a trend happening in the world. Let's say it's like everybody's listening to this rap video and they're driving this car. So I'm going to do everything I can to do it. And whatever gets in my way, my personal relationships, everything, I'm going to go get to that. And by the time, usually another way that the universe always fucks people when they stop thinking for themselves and others and their morals and their values is, let's say they get that trend. That's right when the trend ends. It's like, you know, it's like, sorry, your Rice Rocket Honda Civic isn't cool anymore. I remember when my buddies, we'd replace the gauges for them, you know, in the old days, make the Indiglo gauges and shit like that. And by the time the 4 months went by of fucking putting those things in, it was like there was a new one.
Yeah.
And then they were driving around looking like they were an AutoZone car, you know, like just a year later. And they put everything into that, like and it was like, that's not who you are, you know?
Yeah.
But that's what's kind of weird about this card is anything that you want, how do you go about doing it? It's the approach. And I think this card, it has zero patience. That's the hard part is like patience is part of the journey that makes the best things stick. So it's like you might get it, but does it stick? You might get that relationship you want, but does it stick?
Yeah.
The guys who try to go after a girl and then they're going around where she's being a total bitch all the time, and he's like, oh, I'm sorry, you're right, it was my fault, when really it was like, no, this person doesn't even care about you, that they're actually being the Five of Swords to you, and then you're being the same thing with women. They do the same thing. They'll have a guy being like, oh God, I can't believe you do this and do this. Oh, I'm sorry. We see it on both sides. I think that this card represents that. You shouldn't have to be walking on eggshells. This is definitely a card of like when you're dealing with somebody, or if you're dealing with energy around you where you're walking on eggshells.
Yeah.
Ooh,
yeah.
You know?
Yeah. That's always a big red flag. You should never, like if you're connected to anybody, I don't care who it is, but if you're connected to anybody that you're afraid to open up and be yourself, that's a problem.
I know.
You don't need those people in your life.
No.
Like, fuck that. That's a huge piece of advice that I give. Like, and on the other side of that coin too, like I'll tell people, especially people who are in like connecting with a new relationship. Right. And if you want honesty and transparency, there's you not only do you have to be honest, open, and transparent, but you want to make sure that you provide an environment in which people feel safe opening up around you.
I agree. Yeah.
Like, ain't no judgment here. I ain't judging you for nothing. I got a pass too.
Right.
So,
there's definitely a lot of judgment with this guy, and it's not even the judgment card. That's what's kind of weird. The judgment card, though, does have the swords, but he's not holding them in the same way. They're really out of balance. Right. She's like perfectly in balance with her justice card. But I feel like what's really interesting, too, is that when you bring that up, I'm thinking now of like, okay, when we talk about dealing with these energies and people can be holding this not positive vibe to be open, right? Like, and really that's what it is. Like, are you just a genuine person? Because there's that's the problem is some people just don't want to be genuine. I don't know. But there's that smirk there that always gets me to where it's like, when we were just talking on a live just earlier, this whole like reptilian thing, the girl on the plane, all that shit, people like always associate it as the person's going to look really intense or be dark. It's usually the opposite. It's always the quiet person who can't be open with you and just can't be real with you about anything. And it's like you have to try to pull something out of them to get an answer, to get something out of them. But really what they're doing is they're getting what you want. Mm-hmm. Or what they want from you. Like, oh yeah, okay, just keep giving me it's like, that's that dark magic shit. It's like, let me keep having you pull your energy and I'm taking it. Mm-hmm. I'm just going to sit here and watch, and I'm just going to keep taking all your energy. That's the fucking gnarly part about this card. It's also a card where people are saying like, oh, they think it takes 2 years to know somebody. I think what Richard and I were saying is like, just to say that, yes, I'm going to take action with this person and see where it goes. That first 90 days is the trial period of whether or not you're going to even start to understand the person fully. You know what I mean? I don't think it's, oh yeah, fully for the rest of your life right away. I mean, I think that there is a knowing of that, but yeah, I think by the time you get to a year and a half, because I'm more of a Venus person, 18 months, I think that's where it's like, oh, okay. Especially, like with marriage and especially with babies, right? It's 9 months in the womb. This is weird about Venus. Venus, you see it every 9 months is evening star. Another 9 months is the morning star. Same as women and pregnancy and birth. So, there's kind of that two phases. What do they like in the morning? What do they like in the evening? There's different esoteric aspects to that, but I'm not going to go into a whole school right now. But yeah,
yeah, and with this Venus retrograde coming up, is it in shadow now?
Yeah. Oh, it's been.
Okay, because I remember the last one that I remember. Cause I think I asked you about this, and you said there's been one since then. But the last one I remember was the one in 2018.
Well, it was in Scorpio, fixed sign.
Oh, okay. I remember because that was right after my YouTube channel blew up, and like I woke up one day like that, and the woman that I was dating, we went from being best friends, she turned on me overnight, and I'm like, what the fuck is this? I've been seeing all over the internet Venus retrograde relationships, and I'm like, oh my God, could that really be? And then we broke up, and that's when I had to move, and I was kicked out of my little nest again, and here I am bouncing around with my YouTube channel.
What dates was it that you finally found out you got turned on and you had to move? Like in November, December?
November, yeah. Right before Thanksgiving.
Because that's what happened. So Venus came shadow in September. And then in October of 2018, it retrograded at the beginning of October in Libra season, but Venus was all the way in Scorpio. And then Venus retrograded and met right there at the Scorpio Libra fucking cusp. Like 3 degrees.
How the fuck do you remember that shit? This is why you blow my mind, dude. Like, how do you remember
this is my job. But I remember that one because the same thing happened to me in my life.
Oh, okay.
That's when my first marriage ended, yeah.
Oh, okay.
But, you come into Venus retrogrades, if you're in a patchy relationship, we're going to patch this thing up. And it feels like you got it patched up during the retrograde. And then when it comes direct, like in November, and by the time it finally is direct and starts moving, it goes, this shit wasn't patched up. This just showed you how unfucking patchable this thing really is. So I've been telling people right now, if you're in a stable, good relationship, you have nothing to worry about. But if you're fucking single, you better give it this fucking next 120 days. Like, you know, especially if it's been the last month. Oh God, you know, like you're going to really see, it looks too good to be true. In Leo, fixed sign, right? Oh, I just want the determination to have love. But in Scorpio is to keep the bond. I don't want this thing to end. So this is weird because Leo's more about let's engage, let's express, let's have love, right? But it starts with yourself first. Scorpio also is learning to detach, that you can't own somebody, or when toxic energy is an emotional over-attachment.
Yeah.
So that's why Venus is at detriment in Scorpio. It's not happy there. And Venus, believe it or not, is not happy in Leo. People think it is, but it's not, because it's in the sun's house. So it's in the king's house. So it's like, unless you're in my kingdom, in my domain, and how my domain works, which is very this card. Unless you're in my domain, in my kingdom, and how I want things to be, then it won't work. You know, you don't make me happy. But it's like, what? Because they didn't get ready fast enough? Or because they didn't color their hair the right way? Or whatever it might be? So people think Venus and Leo is a positive place. It's actually one of the worst placements, because it's the sun, where it's thinking about its own self and its own happiness first, which is a good thing for yourself, but not to others. You know, and you'll never get other people to be on that same page. To have a real kingdom, that king and queen of wands, they're both in the same kingdom, but they both have their own throne. They don't share a throne. They both have their own throne. So, you know, two people that don't know what they're doing, or one person only knows what they're doing and nobody else is carrying the weight on the other side, then it becomes like somebody feels like the dominant one. Again, this is a domination card too, right? It's like, so I feel like we're in a time right now where it's like, if somebody's feeling like they're trying to dominate you, you should leave the fuck now. And that should be always, but it's becoming very apparent right now.
Yeah, it just got me a little bit freaked out too, because I have Venus in Pisces. So.
Oh, you're good.
Good? Okay.
Yeah. That's the best. That's exalted. It loves to be there.
Oh, okay. Okay, cool. Because I don't know much about it. Like, I've been trying to study a lot of these, especially here lately since working with you, and I'll watch your horoscopes and stuff like that. And I think I'm getting a hang on it a little bit, because I'm expanding and building on to what I already do. You know, so astrology and numerology is another thing that I've been studying here lately. So,
well, like with your Venus in Pisces, it's exalted because it's in the house of Jupiter originally for Pisces, but also Neptune, which is, you're more about the dream, the compassion. Relationships, when they get all nitpicky in Virgo, Venus in Virgo is the worst place, right? That's its fall position. Because if relationships, you're just like, you need to do this, and you didn't do that, and you didn't do this, and the little things, like, you didn't close the car door, you didn't do that, why do you always say that little thing? Why do you always do that? Why do you eat like that? Right? That's not you. It's the opposite. You just want, let's just have the love, and let's find the spiritual, beautiful energy, and let's find that positive dream. Venus is great in Pisces. And it's spiritually based. It's like, I got to have a partner that's spiritual and loose. Not going to nitpick me on every fucking second.
Yeah.
Right? So that's the beautiful part about Venus and Pisces. Like, it's one of the best positions to have. It's fucking super great position. So you have nothing to worry about. This Venus Leo isn't affecting that hard.
Well, I'm still I'm still working myself out. I still have this thing inside of me that like, I'll default to a worst case scenario, you know, and I don't know what that, if it's my trauma from my past that I'm still working through, or if it's just, I don't know, because I have Virgo moon and rising, but I'm always the type, like, I'm scared to death to get readings. I won't get readings. People try to give me readings all the fucking time, and I won't do it because I don't want to know. But every time I do end up getting a reading, like you got to be really special for me to let you read me. You know, there's only a couple tiny little people I'll let do it. They always say the most amazing things. Every time I ever get a reading, it's like, dude, you're fucking awesome. You got all this amazing stuff coming up for you, you know? And honestly, this little voice in the back of my head is like, they're full of shit. Something bad's going to happen. Like, I don't know, man. I got this weird thing inside of me, some demon that lives in me that's trying to keep me scared all the time, you know? It's weird.
I think we all have that, and then that's where I think we push people away.
Yeah.
right? So it's like, well, if there's people that are good to give readings and maybe you have the fear of it, which a lot of people do, including I think I used to be that way. It's like, okay, well then what's that thing that's wanting to push people away? That you might hear something bad that doesn't go against the narrative that you want it to be? So that's what's hard about readings is like sometimes it's only through a third party or somebody else that's going to help us understand ourselves better by willing to say something without knowing whatever you're actually going through in your mind, whatever that construct that's being built in, to be able to be like, oh, okay, it's not like they're catching you in something. It's more like they're catching you to catch something within yourself because it's going in another direction. So if it's actually going really good and you're like, I don't think it's going good, it's like, well, it's catching you in. Why are you thinking it's not going to go good?
Yeah, I don't know, man. It's just one of them things. Probably just my fucking past, because it's been so traumatic. I've only experienced life being enjoyable for like 4 years now, 3 or 4 years. So I'm 35. So for 31 years, life was hell that I wouldn't wish on anybody. So for the past 4 years, for things to have been fucking great and amazing, it's like, okay, when's it going to come crashing down again? You know, it's weird. I don't know. It's just something I'm working through.
Yeah, and we all have to go through that. And I think this card is the card where we work through the things of the past. There is that, what happened in this card. And that's what's the hardest thing, I think, in this awakening experience is looking back at things to catch ourselves about what we learned about ourselves or what the pain was or what the situation was. And like you said, and you've said many times, transmuting the energy. This is a card where the positive is it's a moment prior to transmutation. Right?
Yeah.
It's the purgatory, but of, am I going to transmute this in a positive way now? Am I going to learn from it? Am I going to take this position and transmute it to something positive? Because we don't know if he was just like playing a game, like, I was just fucking with y'all. Here's your swords back. Like, I'm sorry. I was just fucking with y'all. Like, right? We can catch ourselves and be like, you know what? I'm sorry. I shouldn't have gone there. I'm sorry. I fucking up. Here you go. Da-da. Right? We don't know if he did that or not. But that's the interesting part is it's definitely a card where something's happened and the unsurety of where for it to go. Because he's trying to mutate something instead of transmutation, which would be like it's mutating it to a place that's actually going to go into those in-between spaces that make sense into life. Because if you understand Pythagorean, and especially Pythagorean theory, but especially Pythagorean math, right? Like there's 4 numbers, but in those 4 numbers, there's trans numbers. So there's 1, 3, right? Or sorry, 1, 2, 3, 4. And in between 1 and 2 is 3. And in between 2 and 3 is 5. And in between 3 and 4 is 7. So that's where the trans gets that transmutation. It's actually all in our spirituality. But I mean, I'm going 500 years ago. But yeah, and even longer with Pythagoras. But that's where I think we are, is at a place to where it's like we all have our moments where we've pushed hard. And the frustration comes, you know, where it's just like, fuck. I think it's also a card where we try to push too hard, where it's like, okay, maybe business is getting rough or your work's, you've been putting in so much work and you need more overtime and you're not getting to get it. Or you're putting in so much overtime and it's not enough. It's like, this isn't the time where you just keep pushing too hard. You have to sometimes stop and understand what's going on because you don't want to strain others or you don't want to strain yourself, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Kind of like what you just went through?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. I'm just now at a point in my life where I'm learning that, I mean, you have to trust the universe. Yeah. And that sounds easy. It's easy to say that when things are going good, you know? We always say that we trust the universe when things are going good, but then when things start not going so good and they start getting scary, that's when are you able to let go of the wheel and let the universe steer the vehicle in a different direction? I'm still working on that.
Yeah, I think we all are. I mean, I feel though there's a critical mass that's hitting after everything we've been all going through in our awakening experience together as a collective. And this is the beginning where it's starting to feel like that critical mass is starting to come. So how are we all going to deal with critical mass? I think that's the question of this card. Are we going to do this, or are we going to do something else? And I think instead of looking at maybe a reference of another card or something, I think it's just more about maybe this isn't the area we want to go. I don't think we know until the critical mass hits how to deal with things. But we definitely don't want to, if there was a survival situation, for an example, the last thing you do is go into hypermania mode, because you're going to forget the weapon, forget the food, forget the gas, you have to stop for a second and go, all right, do we make sure we have the water? Do we make sure that we have this? Like, you don't want to just go into crisis mode, and this could be panic mode. Oh my God, I got to figure it out. I got to get this done, and I got to push, and we did go. And it's just like, that really doesn't work. In the Navy, so we learned battle stations. When it goes battle stations, and red lights are going literally on, whether it's on a ship or whether it's on a base, even though it's like, you better get to the line and there's that moment of like, we're getting to the line to make sure everybody's here, and then we're going to figure this shit out together. Opposed to just run it crazy and get to your gun. It's more like, no, get to the line so we all get together, and you go to that gun, you go to that gun, you go up and you watch the radar and you do that, right? Because that's going to be more effective, coming together and working things out, opposed to everybody run amok by yourself. That's one of the things the military taught me really well, was like, in a crisis scenario, you don't run to nowhere. You run to the one place where we all meet and figure it out in a fast second. But, it's better to do that and everybody coordinate than uncoordination. So this could be a card where you're trying to do everything on your own. And it's a card where I feel like you forget that spirit's with you. It's a card where you start to go to, I'm going to figure this out on my own, and I'm going to do whatever I want on my own. And that, as we've said before, it doesn't transmute too well.
Yeah, no. But I think, though, that when critical mass comes, it's going to reveal those people in that card.
Yes.
Just like 2020 did. We all thought we had a real good idea of the people closest to us, and then come the end of 2020, we're looking at people that we admired, people who were so close to us, people that we held very closely in our hearts. And it's like, you are not who I thought you were. And I don't think that's over, because we're getting a little taste of it now with some of the things we were talking about earlier. Things are kind of starting to look a little bit scary. Some weird fucked up shit starting to happen. And even if we were to wake up tomorrow and all hell was to break loose, I still don't think we've seen the end of it. I still think there are probably still some snakes in the grass,
Yes.
Like
that look good that aren't.
Yeah. 2020, that was just a little warm up of showing you that not everybody around you is who you think they are. And now when this shit pops off, we're really going to see.
Well, it's like chess. You have the pawns in front. So it's like Fauci. So they just sacrificed the pawns, but the big dogs haven't been pulled out yet. So it's like, to me, this is a pawn. We don't know if he was hired to do this either, right? Could easily been like, hey, you be the fucking piece of shit, when really I'm the piece of shit paying you in the back, to where you take the blame. I'll make sure you have a nice place and you're going to be safe. That's the creepy part, because being also a chess fucking person, you think you're winning. Best is Russian chess players are amazing. You know why? They trick you usually in all the tournaments to think that you're winning. So they'll sacrifice some pieces, and then they make you go on the offense that you're going to win, when really they've just set up a couple pieces that right when you're going to a spot that you think it is, they've got it covered to kill and then go in and checkmate you. And so that's where I think this card kind of is when you're not thinking and you think, I see a clearing, we're going to win. You want to make sure that you look both ways before you cross the street. You don't want to be the chicken that crossed the road and gets run over. That's what I think the funniest part of the whole chicken crossing the road joke is you. It's the person inside of you that's not paying attention. The dumbass chicken that's just fucking walking around. And we have a lot of people and being chicken themselves, right? You know, like we always say when two cars are trying to come at each other, who's going to chicken out first? So here comes the dark steamrolling ahead. Believe it or not, the chicken shits are the ones trying to have you go first, but they wouldn't sacrifice their dark, weird ways that they won't let go. So they come across trying to steamroll, but they'll always back off because they don't want to lose their crazy shit. You know, they got their adrenochrome and shit.
Yeah. We're going to see a lot of that coming up here lately. Going to see a lot of it, I think. You know, that's another reason I'm glad that we kept our circles small. Yeah. Because, you know, what are we going to do? What are you going to do when you wake up and there's nothing in the bank? You know?
I know.
How are you going to react when this pension fund that you've been counting on all these years is gone?
Yeah.
And your bank account says 0. Then how are you going to react? That's when we're really going to see everybody's true colors, I think.
Well, it just happened this weekend in Australia. You can't go pull cash out of the banks.
Oh, shit.
It's going all around Australia right now, and New South Wales and all that stuff. So it's already happening. Or you just saw Wells Fargo, where they're doing currency exchange instead of like just ATMs and pulling your money out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was just one that I saw. I think it's somewhere up in Northern California where a manager said, yeah, I know what the QFS is, and we're getting ready for that. And they remodeled the inside of a Wells Fargo. And they had all these little cubicles in there, and they said those are going to be currency exchange stations. And I'm like, sweet, because I bank with Wells Fargo and I have foreign currency. So I'm glad I went ahead and did that, you know. But still, I don't think I don't think anybody is exempt unless you're just, you know, way up there with the big dogs and you got in with some special people. The overwhelming majority of us are all going to get the shit scared out of us. You know, those of us down here on the bottom, you know, even like me and you and all the people that we know, I think we're all going to get the shit scared out of us. We're going to wake up and the bank is going to say, zoop, nothing.
I think that's what this time has already been, though, is preparing for that by already being scared in order to then when it actually hits, be like, oh, okay, I can deal with this.
Yeah.
I think that we've all been stretched so much. And that's what this card does, too, is I feel like it's where we can stretch ourselves thin. I mean, the Ten of Wands has that determination to finish, whereas, like, he's not even... It's like he's just using all his ammo in 1 second. And then the next card, you don't even see him, but his wife and child are fucking getting the fuck out of Dodge. Right? And we don't even know where he is. He's probably all fucking... Now he's under a bridge.
Yeah.
You know?
Probably.
Like, and I think that's the problem, is that people, you know... The dark's going to try and scare us as much as they can. They've already done that, and they're going to continue. But you can't live in that fear. You just have to walk away from it and remember that the universe is going to figure... You're going to be able to figure it out in the moment along with the universe. It's not like... You can't be over-planned either, because this card could also be like too much strategy to win, to where it's like, okay, you won, but was it worth all that energy for the strategy? You know?
Yeah.
I mean?
Well, I mean, that's another thing that I have to tell people all the time is like, if you want to develop your own personal relationship with the universe, you can't strategize too much. I mean, come up with a strategy, but if you box yourself in and limit yourself to only your strategy, there's exceptions to everything, you know, that some people get lucky, but very frequently, probably 80 to 90% of the time, if you just box yourself in to a little strategy, like, you're not going to get anywhere unless you do some shit like that.
Right.
You know, but like it all goes back to trusting in the universe. So I'm going to come up with some kind of plan, an A to Z plan. But I already know that by the time I hit step C, D, E, an unexpected turn's going to come. Right. So I'm going to feel the universe pushing me in a different direction, and I'm going to have to go, whoa, okay, I don't know what this means, but I guess we'll go this way, right. You know? And that's the universe going, hey, gotcha. Kind of like what we talked about before we came on camera with you got something new coming up now. I don't know if you want to talk about that or not, but you know, that's just that's a perfect example of how the universe can be like, yo, I got you. You know,
Right.
so
Yeah, and I feel like that's where if you don't need to force yourself in spirituality to try to get to where you need to go. Now, of course, I think there's risk taking that needs to be done in life. You got to take those jumps. We cover a lot of those in other cards, but this isn't the card of taking the risk. This is a card where it's like, do you really have to go that hard towards something? Because it's going to probably take you off. Like, as you said, it sabotages. What it really sabotages is your own alignment. You know, it sabotages other people's alignment. And so what do you think is going to happen? You can look at it as the karmic way, feeling as if there's some, you know, big karmic aspect of a person and God that's, I'm going to throw bad karma at you. Or just the natural laws of the universe and the frequency. You disrupt the frequency and you're the carrier of that disruption. You're going to get the static back. You're going to get the fucking, you know, you try to fuck with magnets the wrong way, it's going to repel. So I feel like this is a moment whenever this card comes up, like, do you really need to push harder? In love, though, when I used to do my deep love tarot, I'd look at this card. If it was like about somebody else, I'm like, well, you're really wanting them to try harder, but are you sure you're really wanting them to? Because maybe you don't like them. Maybe, you know, like if they're not trying hard enough, what would it be like if they actually tried fully hard? Sometimes the universe, like, I remember, you know, when you're single before you find your true life partner, I remember, you know, you're like, why didn't this person respond that much? Why are they not getting back to me? Why are they not da-da-da? And it's like the more you try to go at it, boy, does that repel the situation.
Yeah.
But two, it's also like, yeah, that was the reason why. They were definitely not the one. So I feel like people, this card is one of those things where it's like, or maybe you haven't tried hard enough, or maybe you're the one who hasn't tried hard enough, and it's like maybe you have to put a little bit more effort in. But usually that's in the reverse. When I see this in the reverse, it's like you're not putting any effort in at all. I feel like this is such a bipolar card. It's like too much or not at all.
Yeah.
You know, in reverse.
Well, I mean, if it was your person, you would want to put that effort in. That's where, whenever that dynamic comes up in a relationship, you can almost always guarantee, well, then that's not your person. Because you and your person are going to gravitate together naturally. And if they're not feeling you enough to put in effort, or you're not feeling them enough to put in the effort, then that's not your person.
Yeah.
Because when it's your person, I'm going to tell you what, one of the biggest keys to a successful relationship is having uncomfortable conversations.
Yeah.
And conversations that are so uncomfortable that when it's not your person, I'm not doing that. I'm not. Now, I'll be the first to admit it. There's been many people that, yeah, I could have saved that relationship if I really wanted to, but I didn't want it bad enough. But now with my wife now, fucking I'll bend over backwards and break my back.
Right.
You know, and I'll have that uncomfortable conversation and you know, because it's worth it when it's your actual person. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and you know you're with your person when you're yourself, or especially as a guy like me. You own a business, I own a business, and when there's times when it's fucking troubling, you know, she relieved me so much over the last week to two, just being like, if we lost everything, babe, we'll figure it out. I'm like,
yeah.
It's like, what a relief of knowing that, because I'm the same way back. Whatever she'd be going through, or whatever we're going to go through together, we're going to go through it all. No matter what. There's no looking at the door because it doesn't go in the perfect way of, and we're not talking about like personal shit, right? We're talking about shit that's out of control, like you can't control it fully. So it's like, that's how I think, you know, too, because those are very uncomfortable situations that bring up uncomfortable situations that also bring up uncomfortable conversations of like, fuck, you know, it's a lot easier to just be like, you know, things aren't going well, but I'm not going to, everything will just be okay, you know, instead of being like, hey, this is what's happening. If this doesn't happen by this time, we're going to have to make this change. And this might not be a fun change. That's an uncomfortable situation and an uncomfortable conversation. But I almost feel like relationships are here to empower each other and support each other. This is definitely a card where, I'll be honest, if I saw this in a love reading, I'd just be like, there's too many. Whether they're an NPC, they're an AI that escaped from a fucking lab, because that was the conspiracy that came out with the girl on the fucking plane. That the elite have been doing AI bionic humans, which basically Alex Jones said it right. two years ago on Joe Rogan, you know, human animal hybrids. That they finally have got it mixed with AI, and that they let it out of the lab or escape from the lab.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me.
And so for all the vegans out there, you know, you're mad at people eating meat when they're making hybrids out of humans, and and some of those people are the vegan influencers, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
That they have been taken over.
Yeah. I mean, they're because I mean there actually are some body and blood types. Like, I'm not one of those people that says, oh, you need meat or you'll be malnourished. And I also don't swing to the other side of the spectrum to where it's like, oh no, you know, you're not supposed to have meat, because every body type is different. There are some blood types who don't need meat. It's toxic to the body. Like, all they need to eat is vegetables. There's other blood types to where if they go without eating meat, they'll be malnourished and they'll fucking die. You know, now there is no one size fits all for humans. We are all this crazy genetic experiment. There's nothing natural about us. You know, we all come from. I know. Yeah, we're all descendants of fucking aliens.
I mean, again, that's where I think astrology and human design help. Trying to tell Leo with a Leo rising and a Leo Mercury and a Leo Venus and a Leo Sun that they should be vegan is just the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life. And it's the lion, it's the carnivore, it's the sun. It needs a lot of energy, right? And lions don't eat vegetables. They don't eat grass.
Yeah.
They're carnivores. Right? Whereas, like, I can understand. Usually most vegan people have a lot of, like, Capricorn or Taurus in them, and they got some Aquarius in them mixed with all that in a bag, and they got some sort of earth element, and you know, so it all depends. It's like the dinosaurs that were herbivores and carnivores. You know, it's like some cats like to just eat fucking a couple plants here and then they get hungry and then they go fucking kill a rodent.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it just, you know, and then people go, you can't compare because it's like, oh my God. It's like, that's getting off the whole path, the whole mission. You know, we all got brought down here with whatever works for us to win the mission.
Mm-hmm.
You know, to be honest with you, like the whole narrative of what was happening today on the show of like, you all are eating the fucking animals. What if the whole time there's been no animals they've been killing and it's been lab grown meat for fucking the last 5 years?
Yeah, no shit.
Then that throws your whole story out.
Yeah.
The reason why the chicken's been stringy lately for like 5 years, and right, like people don't know what that truth might be. So that's where this card is false truth. Like, my truth wins, yours doesn't, without facts to back it up.
Even at that, I don't care what role you're playing here on planet Earth. I don't care if you're here playing the role of a human. I don't care if you're here playing the role of a puppy dog. I don't care if you're here playing the role of a fucking cow. You come here with a mission. And yes, lots and lots and lots of beings and entities volunteer to come play a role that's extremely fucked up.
Yeah.
Nothing happens. And this is another thing. If you think there's anything that can happen to you in this life that you did not agree to before you got here, that shows how spiritually dead asleep you are.
Yeah.
So even if there are all these animals out here getting slaughtered, you think they didn't know that that's what they incarnated for? That's exactly what they came here and signed up to do. I'm going to go play the role of that chicken that's going to get its head cut off. Like, this is a big stage play that we all agreed to before we got here.
Including the last 3 years, to watch half the world, 60% of the world, 70% of the world fall for this stupid fear that we all signed up to be part of that. It's like, yes, I speak my truth the whole time. I've never censored myself about this situation since 2017, continuing. But, you know, yeah, it's hard for me to watch humans die by being killed by other humans over experimental shots. But am I losing my mind over it? I do the best that I can, but I don't force people. You can't force people. You can't force people to change, force people to be awake. That's the number one. You can't force anybody to awake. That's the hardest. We've all been there. We've all tried a relationship where you try to wake somebody up spiritually, or you try to wake up a friend, or you try to wake up some. And you know what? That's something that can't be forced. So whatever your spiritual mission is, let's say it is veganism. Well, remember that people will figure that out on their own. You can be an advocate for it, but don't push people into it. Yeah. Don't ever push people. You're never going to... I don't push people into astrology. Like, well, if you don't use astrology, you're a piece of shit, right? It's like, what? That's why I have High Vibe. It's a bunch of everybody and other people, and that's why other spiritual networks are the same. It's all the same shit in different ways, right? It's all cut up different ways. And I know that'll fuck up a vegan. You said cut up. Like, what do you think they're cutting and slicing out too? You know, and there's human DNA in all the vegetables. That's the weirdest part, right? Look that up.
Well, actually, I think that that's one of the biggest awakenings that I personally have gone through over the past 3 years is because, yeah, we have all been there, you know, where I want you to see this. But then over the last 3 years, I don't know about anybody else, but I've found myself having to step back, and it has made it more clear to me than it ever has been what beings came here to play the 3D human game and what beings came here to make the shift. You know?
Yeah.
And like there are just some beings that like the more evidence you put in their face, the more angry they get. And you know what? I'm gonna take another side bar here and kind of get off subject a little bit. I was talking about this the other day. Of all the things that I've talked about on my platforms, nothing has brought me the more vicious attacks than talking about the Mandela effect.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I've talked about everything under the sun. And of course, you know, you're going to have trolls here and haters there and shit talkers here. But you talk about the fucking Mandela effect.
I know.
That's one of those things I think that the Matrix seriously sends its fucking bots after you to really attack you if you say something about that, you know? But I mean, that's just one of those things over the past 3 years, you know, I've really gone through another layer of my awakening where it's been much easier for me to step back and say, oh, okay, that's the game you want to play? Okay, cool. All right, you want to go get the shot and play that game? Okay, cool. Go play that game then, you know. And I've made quantum leaps in my awakening over the last 3 years because it's been made so clear to me, you know.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
I think that's the weird part of the evolution we're all going through is some things phase out naturally, right? It's like people get stuck in a timeline. Like, oh, it should always look like this. We always take vaccines. We always do this. We always do that. It's like, what do you mean? Look at the last fucking however long this humanity's lasted. Like, this is an experiment the last 100 years. That we all we have electricity and cameras in our face and all that shit. Information flying at us 24/7. 100 years ago, it wasn't like that at all. So this is the experiment. So the idea that you have all the info when there's more information out there than your brain will ever be able to receive, right? Like even the AI thing, right? Like it's too much for it to even fully understand, right? So like that's where I think people get to that place where they're ready to pop. This is definitely the card of like somebody's ready to pop. You know, and I think that's hard. In the awakening experience, you have to get to those levels when you know when to back out and be like, you know what? I've gone really far down this rabbit hole. I'm going to pull out for now.
Yeah.
You know, and you can't justify and be the only one that's justified because then you become the savior and you can't be, there's nobody here. One person's going to save it all because then, to be honest with you, you're walking down a road that Hitler walked down. You know, and he was a vegan.
Yeah. I mean, I think natural selection is kind of taking care of the process of who's...
Why are the vegans kill the most people?
Like, I mean, if you think about it,
like, why though? That's a good question. Like, I want like, why was the biggest people who killed the most people in the world vegans?
I don't know. I mean, every vegan I've ever met, this is just personally, I'm not saying that you're like this if you're a vegan, but every time I meet one personally, they're angry. They always seem to carry a chip on their shoulder and they always seem angry. So I don't know what that would have to do with anything, but have you noticed that, or is that just me?
No, I think it's like Hitler, like, you know, like maybe they didn't get their morning shot of speed to counter the being vegan. So maybe they didn't get their shot of speed like Biden gets every day. I don't know, you know. But I just think it's weird that in the name of people who are vegetarian or vegan have been you have to put like, okay, who are good examples? Well, it's like the person who killed the most people in the world is at the top of the list. Like I could tell you if I don't eat, I get hangry. Or like Sophia, she was a vegan for so long, became pregnant. Now she's eating meat because she's like, I don't think I would have been able to make it through this fucking pregnancy. That's just insane.
Yeah.
And the baby has been fully healthy. Mm-hmm. So it's one of those things in life to where it's like, reminds me of being hangry. Like you could be hungry and then eat some chips, but I'll still be hangry. Or sushi to me. If I eat sushi 2 hours later, I'm ready for a whole fucking another full course meal. Mm-hmm. That shit goes down in 1 second. Like, it's like eating paper.
Yeah.
Water paper. So I don't know, but I think that's where, you know, we have to be willing to accept everybody's ideologies and theories and not try and fucking just like be like, oh, mine is the only way. Yeah. I think it's good to ask questions. Though,
do what you do, you know?
That's why I like Tucker Carlson, because he'll have you ask the questions like, well, if we're going to talk about vegetarian, I always go straight to Hitler. I don't ever say that. It's the first time I've ever said it out loud, but it's like the angriest person in the world who thought it was good to kill other people. It wasn't just Jews either. It was Gentiles. It was astrologers. It was trans people. It was he started with the trans people. That's what's weird. It's the same thing. Inflation, throw all the trans out in the street. And then what do? People don't like it, so then they throw all those people in prison. They didn't like the astrologers because they all thought it was part of the Weimar Republic. So it's the same thing happening again. The camps are coming for all the people that they're throwing out right now that you don't like. But don't be on that side of the fence where you're going to be like, oh, I'm going to become authoritarian too. And like, yeah, throw them in the fucking, they were at the schools, they were doing, throw them, kill them. Exactly what happened in Nazi Germany. The first people to go in the camps were the trans and the gay people and all that. So that's why I've always been somebody who's like not against it. Like you do whatever you want, whatever. And people hate me. People think, I thought you were a Republican, but you know, the second I go into a Republican circle and I talk about astrology, I'm already connected to Pedowood because I was in Hollywood and I did stuff on TV. I have massive emails right now just because I sent out a mass email for the school I'm doing this week and a special next week. Boom. Hundreds of emails. Pedowood, you're pedo. Da, da, da. I'm like, I've never done any of that shit. Like, fucking just because I lived in Hollywood or they saw me on a TV show. It's like automatic. Or in the Republican circles, because I am an astrologer. Well, I'm not a fucking true Christian. I'm not a born again because I do astrology and automatically labeled in with the dark fucking thing.
Man.
But the Weimar Republic, high inflation, pushing the trans movement. What does that lead to? Right-wing authoritarianism under the skies of socialism. Hitler. First people in the camps were not Jews. It was all the gays and all the trannies. And then it was astrologers and Gentiles. And then they did the Jews for the money.
I mean, the whole goal is to raise your vibration, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's the whole goal. That's the only reason that's what we're all after here is to raise your vibration. I mean, you think about it. This is high vibe TV. There's not... We're so programmed to look out here for the answer to our problems. Yeah. You know, like I need this crystal. That's what's going to protect me. I need to be a vegan and that's what's going to make my vibration high. I need to do this and that's what's going to help me. And it's like, no, it's not. No, there's no crystal at the end of the day that's going to protect you if your energy is not in the right place. Right. There is no diet that's going to raise your vibration if your energy is not in the right place. These are all things you can do and tools that can assist you. But at the end of the day, you're responsible for your own energy. You're responsible for your frequency. I don't care what you eat. Like you ever met a vegan or vegetarian that's high vibe and they're angry? And it's like, yeah, but your vibe's not high. You're angry. Or somebody that goes around with crystals all over them. Oh, I'm protected. I don't think you are. You're walking around in fear.
I know.
You're scared to death. The reason shit keeps happening to you isn't because you didn't find the right crystal. It's because you're casting vibrations of fear.
Yeah.
So the universe says, oh, you like being afraid? Okay, no problem. Here you go.
Yeah, here you are.
You know?
Or that all poisons, toxic chemicals, all that come from plants.
You mean like the pesticides and shit?
Everything, all of it. Like, right? The world, it's not coming from animals. It's coming from plants, minerals, and how you concoct it in a lab to make poison. Right? So that's the number one lesson in old alchemy, right? Is about understanding how to turn lead into gold, but also understanding the original science, which is like understanding too much mercury in something, too much of this. Where do you get all these substances? The irons, you get them in the earth. So this whole like earth movement thing, you know, all the toxic waste that you see is actually made from the earth. Oil comes from the earth. Like, so this whole earth movement is also what creates all the toxics, the fluorides, and all these things that people are so afraid of, the thing that they love so much and that they want to nurture. That's the irony in the whole thing. That all the toxic aspect is created from the same thing they think is non-toxic.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, here's one that's been driving me nuts for many, many years. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but you know how there's trash cans on every corner and they tell you not to litter because, like, if I was to go outside and throw this on the ground, that'd be toxic to the earth, right?
Right.
Well, when I throw it in a trash can, are they taking that trash bag and launching it to the moon? They're putting it in the ground.
Landfills, yeah.
So what's the fucking point of throwing shit in a trash can? That's not to help the earth because they're putting it back in the ground.
No, it's a convenience to just get it out of your life and a convenience for them to then go put it in another place and make money off it. The funniest thing about cans, I always laugh when people recycle. So when Waste Management or anybody takes your recycle bin and then they take your trash bin and then they take it to the trash yard, they have people hired that go through the trash bin one and pull all the cans out for you because they're going to recycle it and make the money. So that goes on a conveyor belt. And they have hundreds of people just sitting there every day with if it's too much for them to put on a mask or whatever, but they just have gloves on and they just go can because they're going to make the money. So I think it's funny when people look at you and if I throw a can in the trash, they're like, there's a recycle bin right there. It's like, I always tell them, like, are you fucking retarded? You just made it easier for their job. And then it's crazier because then they charge you for that recycle bin and then they make laws in the city saying you have to have it, like they're doing now the new waste for your garden and all that shit that's coming out this year in California. It's just, you're doing the work for us that we don't want to do.
That's funny. Because I mean, it's kind of like all just a big psyop. I think.
Correct.
You know, it's not throwing. And now I'm not saying go litter. I'm not advocating littering. Just to put that out there, because I know there's somebody out there that's going to twist my words. I'm not saying go litter, but I'm just inviting you to take a look at it from a different perspective. Throw your trash away, absolutely, but don't pat yourself on the back thinking that you're saving the planet because that trash you threw away is going right back in the ground. You know? Right. So it's like out of sight, out of mind. Everything is a big perception game here on planet Earth. And in this 3D human game, it's all a big game of perception.
Yeah, and somebody just said, like, on YouTube, sorry, I'm like off on my own tangent thinking about what to do with pedos because of the Sound of Freedom and all that. Well, the Sound of Freedom was made by people in Hollywood. So it's like, if you know somebody from Hollywood who won't call out against it, then you know that they're probably maybe not connected or they are connected. But whether it's Mel Gibson coming out with his documentary and calling it out, he's from Hollywood and calling it out. I'm from Hollywood and always called all this shit out. So do you think I'm really that person? This is the people that you're not hearing.
Yeah.
It's the people who are too afraid to say something, just like The Shot. They took money from The Shot. Anderson Cooper took $13 million. Like, come on. Like, so you can't just like loop all the pedos into, if you came from Hollywood. That'd be like saying you're all white trash because you live in Louisiana. Like, come on.
Yeah.
It's just the most stupidest argument in the world. What to do about them? I mean, I think they're going to get fucking...
I think they already were.
I think that a lot of them already were, and I think that a lot of them that haven't been Well, a lot of them have all been caught. If you see how many stories that have been kind of always kept silent just over the last 10 years, it's like...
Well, I mean, I don't know. I think they were all given like a little bargain deal. Like, I don't know all the details, but like they'll say, okay, well, we'll give you a deal. If you agree to do this, then we'll give you an easier sentencing. Whenever it all does come out, I think they said that the people who were cooperative will be allowed to leave a legacy, and like it'll just say that they died of the vaccine or COVID or something like that. But the people who didn't cooperate, they're going to be outed. It's going to be made known that they were, they stood trial and was executed. But
I mean, that's why Jim Carrey got a lawyer, like 4 months ago, because he's part of the Epstein list and he's trying to already get on top of that.
Oh, that doesn't surprise me.
And he's very implant in the spiritual community that, everybody loves Jim Carrey and he's so thoughtful and he paints all these pictures. Have you seen the pictures he's painted?
No.
Oh, God.
No. One thing I've been seeing here a lot lately, though, is, and I'm not going to say any names. I want to say this person's name, but I don't ever publicly bash anybody on the internet. But there's this actor who was very, very famous back in the 90s for one specific movie. And now he's older. He's about your age, my age, and he's all washed up. And he still acts in little low budget films, but he's not big anymore.
Pauly Shore?
No. He was a kid back then. But anyway, now though, like I think he's just trying to stay on their good side. So he keeps throwing all this woke shit out there and like just so woke. But it's like, dude, you haven't even done anything big in like 15, 20 years. And he's just trying to kiss ass. Those people are the people that you want to look out for. The people throwing all the woke shit,
Yeah, it's like a calling card. It's pretty simple to see now. I mean, especially if they're not promoting family or breaking families apart, or they're trying to say something's not real when we know it's all fucking real. Like everybody that has watched that movie has already told me like they can't believe that liberals think that it's a lie.
Can't believe what?
That it's a lie. That a lot of liberals are thinking that movie's fake. Like that's not really happening.
Well, of course.
I'm like, that's where you should start going. No, it's more like they're too afraid to see. Or I read somebody on Twitter in the comments about all the new vax stuff that just came out, and the paper that was just taken off the Lancet that showed that 74% of a controlled study of autopsied bodies died from the shot out of a group of 450 people, right? And so a lot of the people that were talking shit, or that one muscle builder who he got the 4 shots, and then he even talked about the blood clots, and he just died this last week, right?
That was a bummer.
And every comment of people supporting the vax saying he died of steroids, and everybody's like, nobody's died of steroids, right? But
he wasn't even on steroids.
Somebody said the best line. They were like, all the people who are supporting the vax in here are just fucking so terrified.
Yeah.
And that they're doing this. So that's the way to look at it, Yeah.
Well, what I was going to say a minute ago is that if you look at it, and I did a video about this the other day where, just because we're headed straight to the new earth doesn't mean there's going to be an easy path there. Because if you look at it, I can see why the white hats are letting some of this shit happen now. Because they're not going to interfere. No. They're going to keep letting the traps get thrown. So, like, by the time we make it to this new earth, only those who really have eyes to see are going to make it there.
I know.
If you're not tuned in, you're going to fall into one of the traps.
I know.
Get the vaccine or some of this stupid shit they got, the gender dysphoria shit, and all the little traps that are getting thrown. It's like they're gonna set the traps out there. They're not going to stop coming. And if you get sucked into one, well, so be it. Then you wouldn't have made it in the new earth anyways.
Right.
Like if you're that, I don't know what word to use because I'm not trying to sound condescending, but if you're that unevolved, I guess, to try to use a neutral word that's not, I don't want to sound condescending, but if you're that unevolved, you wouldn't make it in this new world anyway.
Right. So
the traps are going to keep coming. They're going to keep setting them, and people are going to fall into them. People will die. Oh yeah, there's going to be a massive loss of life. And
I mean, you have to look at the brands that you buy at Whole Foods or anything now, because they have that crazy vaccine-based like companies for plants that are out at Whole Foods now.
Yeah.
right? Like you have to look at every little corner at some little thing and just be like, It's funny though, because it's like, like why have they been trying to get rid of tobacco for so long over the last 20 years? And it's like all the studies have shown that the nicotine receptors that we naturally have in our brain are what protecting people this whole time, right? So it's like, why is it that smokers weren't, like we're talking bad smokers with COPD and shit didn't die of COVID. Like why? Like that's the number one, like you always look at those things in life where you're like, why is there that one thing why are people that have never smoked dying of COVID and people who smoke their whole lives or vape or have nicotine all the time? France was trying to give everybody nicotine in March of 2020. And then they figured, people will not do it. Right? So, but you have to ask yourself, like, why? Like, why? Oh, okay. But, like there's all these things that people just don't want to see. That the attacks on things come for a reason. So like, it's so funny because they're like, well, if you smoke, you're going to die of lung cancer. It's like, it kind of sounds weird, but my whole life I've never known anybody who smoked who died of lung cancer.
Yeah. I haven't either.
I'm not saying it's not true. I'm just saying like, it's just really weird that the people that I know who are still alive, they might have stents in their hearts and shit, but they're in their 80s still going.
Yeah.
And smoked their whole life. Or my grandmother who died at 94 smoked till 50 and then quit at 50.
Because I mean, when it all comes down to it, cancer is manifested.
Yeah.
It's manifested by a very specific energy. Now, like if you, how am I going to word this? If you have this deep-seated vibration buried deep inside of you, where you have a lot of pent-up anger and rage and frustration, and one of your outlets to channeling that energy is to smoke, it wasn't the cigarette that gave you the cancer. It was the vibration, the energy that manifested the cancer. Does that make sense?
The emotion.
Yeah.
Cancer in astrology is emotion.
Yeah.
So cancer is emotional.
Yeah.
It's so funny. Quit. But you can see the programming. Like, quit it. It's so bad.
Yeah.
Like, if I were to tell people to quit fucking taking the Bible as what you think it is and look at it in a different way, oh man, people would fucking, no, that's crazy.
I'd say quit bitching. Bitching is bad.
Like, it's like,
it's bad for you.
It's so weird. Like, I just, it's just like, man, it's like, my dad didn't smoke, and I sat there and watched as a kid Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin live into their 70s and late 70s and shit. My dad died at 64 years old of a heart attack, didn't smoke, didn't drink, didn't just... But my grandfather died in his 70s and he smoked. So, and he lived the longest out of the male Palmers, so I'm like, I think there's a lot more that I think the total critical mass of information that'll hit people over the next 3 years, when it hits them, all the things they thought or all the things that were coming at them, like the vegan movement started on Netflix and documentaries. Or you look at it where it's like the smoking thing started with to try to get it to where, and they throw this whole COVID thing out. All the people who don't smoke fucking got affected, and the people who smoked didn't. Look that up yourself. It's like, all these movements are all these movements. Mm-hmm. Don't do this. Don't do that. I'm not telling you what not to do, but it's like, look yourself. If this card is don't look yourself, I'm going to force it upon you. But I think you can tell someone drill when it's like, look something up yourself. If so many people, the same people in here are telling me, stop smoking, stop doing this, are the same people who will put out a thing like everything is a conspiracy is true. So if I'm trying to tell you right now that one of the biggest conspiracies of all time, especially since every fucking native tribe to every fucking thousands of years of fucking history, tobacco has been the massive part of it. And this is the first time in history they're trying to get rid of tobacco.
Yeah.
You're trying to tell me right now that I should get rid of my tobacco after those people lived longer in the fucking 1500s than people right now, all this died suddenly and all this, sudden fucking sudden adult death syndrome is happening.
It is neuroprotective. I never even thought about that, though. That's funny that you said that, because I've been seeing a few videos here lately where they're actually neuroscientists are talking about how nicotine is neuroprotective. Now, cigarettes are carcinogenic, but nicotine is actually good for you. And I was like, oh, okay. But I never, ever put two and two together and thought about that. But it makes perfect sense. Makes perfect sense. And yeah, back in the day, I mean, I don't know about the last couple hundred years, but definitely probably about 1,000 years ago, people's lifespans were like doubled. And and it even says in the ancient texts, our lifespans were reduced to 120 years. Like if we didn't have all the poisonous food and the pollution and shit, we lived to be about 120. But before that, we were living a couple of thousand years. The hominids that were here before us, they fucked with our DNA and cut our lifespan down to 120. And all the poison shit in the foods and in the air and whatnot has cut it even shorter than that, to where people think now that a lifespan of 75 is normal.
Right. I mean, I believe in the 120 years. If you think of Saturn's 30-year rotation times it by 4, that makes more sense to get to 120 and equals 7. You know, it's like 4 revolutions of 30 years.
But you could still wake up your own DNA. Yeah. There's ways to they have the technology out there to where you can tinker with your DNA and reactivate it and live. I've heard one person, a couple of people, and I totally believe this, that there are people on the planet now who are about our age who will probably live to be close to 150 to 200. That's another big thing that's going to be coming up with, like, the whole, it's not just the financial system that's changing, the whole medical industry. Big pharma is going to tank. You know, the med beds are already available, but, you know, like, as that stuff starts to get rolled out and you start learning, like Reiki healing, reconnective healing, you learn how to tap into the energy yourself. We're going to be awakening our DNA in the next 10 to 20 years. And humans, those of us who do make the shift, will be living much longer than 120 years.
Yeah, and that's possible. Somebody had brought up, well, smoking isn't a godly death. I don't know what a godly death is. I don't know if there's a list. If you could let me know what's the godliest way to die. Yeah. I didn't know that was an ungodly way to die. Tell me where that book's floating in the air. But
people just come up with the silliest shit.
I know, that's pretty weird. Yeah. But you know, it's like, I feel like I'm an astrologer, so I look at the especially the people born in the 80s, you know, came at a time where we know how to mutate through shit. We grew up with drinking soda, and fucking McDonald's was not looked at as an unhealthy thing, and
yeah,
you know, so it's like I kind of feel bad because, you know, you take these younger generations and like they can't handle that shit.
Yeah.
You take the older ones and they don't know how to handle it either. But it's like these 80s kids, us 80s kids, like are like fucking like, to me, a toxic person is the most toxic thing in life opposed to a toxic substance. Like, if I've made it all the way here fucking off every top 6 toxic substances in the world fucking 10 times over, and I drink fucking high fructose corn syrup every fucking day of the fucking week. You know, yeah, I'm still spiritual. Does this make me not spiritual? I'm sorry, Lord, in the book that's floating in the sky that I didn't know it said to not drink sugar or to do, you know, like people are lost. That's all matrix program shit. It's all program shit, because if anything, if you can't be yourself, whatever that is, if you want to eat chocolate, if you want to fucking run, if you want to not run, whatever it is, that's your frequency and your vibration that's making you happy, that's not doing anything that's bad morally to fucking the world and causing massive disruption to other people. Like, sorry to say that my fucking drinking my Coca-Cola or drinking fucking whatever is, and this is caffeine free because I don't drink caffeine. what does that have to do with you? Like, you know?
Yeah.
That's what I think this card is like, live you. Whenever you try to tell somebody to do something, you look like a fucking idiot. And that's where we get asshole. You're assuming that I'm going to die of something. I might die from fucking somebody coming to kill me. I'm more concerned about these crazy people out there who think because I was on TV that I'm a pedo and coming in and trying to kill me with some story they've made up in their head, which a lot of people make stories up. That's more of a concern to me in life than dying of smoking or whatever than that. Like, I have actual FBI who've been here and crazy things about people that have said so much crazy shit that they're like, man, that's crazy. When the FBI tells you, like, you have some crazy people after you. You know. And I have the receipts. You know. Oh, okay. And you know, it's all you motherfuckers out there that are trying to fucking say, oh my God, you fucking need to be this way. Okay.
Spiritual community is riddled with it, dude.
I know.
That's why I do the best that I can to convey the message that at the end of the day, it's about you being happy. Are you happy? If you're sitting around pissed off, you spend the majority of your day angry because of what somebody else is doing, that's not spiritual, not a high vibration.
No.
At least that's a very low vibration. You know, if I don't give a damn what you eat or don't eat or what you smoke or don't smoke, are you happy? It's that simple. I don't know about anybody else, but I eat Taco Bell. It's like my fucking favorite fast food. I like soda. I'm a happy motherfucker, dude.
I know.
I love my life. I smoke. I'm fucking happy. My life is awesome. There is not one human being who walks the face of this earth that I would trade lives with. I wouldn't. My life is fucking awesome.
Right.
That's all I'm worried about. And I know there's a lot of people out there who can't say that. And I get it because I've been there.
Right.
So that's why I feel like it's my mission to help you understand that it's about your happiness. It's not about you judging other people for what they are or aren't doing. Like if you're drinking poison and allowing yourself to be pissed off, you know, I know there's somebody watching this right now who is so pissed off at me and you, and they're just boiling with anger. They're going to manifest cancer. They're so pissed off. It's like, that is not a high vibration. It's not. And if that's the way you spend your days, you're not on a high vibration. You're not going to make the shift. Life is not going to get better. There is nothing that's going to happen for you that's going to turn you into a happy person. There is no diet that's going to raise your vibration. There's no relationship. No person is going to come into your life and create your happiness for you. There's no money that you're going to make that's going to make you happy. It just doesn't work that way. You know, we're all responsible for our own frequency.
No, because, you know, you didn't get here or I didn't get here because we're so sensitive that we can't even handle a Glade plugin, supposedly. So, you know, I like taking it. Like, I'm so sensitive, I can't handle a Glade plugin. Especially when I fart, I take the Glade plugin and I plug it up my asshole and I fart it out, and it's called poopery. So, you know, it's how I deal with the sensitivity in my life. It's not easy because it hurts. I don't like playing with that area, but, you know, I'm so sensitive, though, that I can't handle things, you know. So Glade plugins, when they're plugged in and it's around me, it's so hard, you know. So, you know, but, you know, like when you have like FBI agents trying to protect you from crazy people trying to kill you and trying to make stories up to put you in jail, I mean, you know, I guess you could call that a sensitivity, or you can call that I have no other choice but to just show my authentic truth and prove to the FBI that they're crazy, and that's it. And then let other people out know there that they're crazy. I mean, that's not a sensitivity, you know, but I think that's where we're at in this world. We're at a world where, unfortunately, yeah, it's. I was telling my mom this today because she saw somebody she likes and watching Republican shit started talking shit on astrology, and it's already, they're coming after us. All the people who say they fight for freedom and shit all have targets right now. pew, 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 pew. On anybody who's in the occult world. They're associating that with pedo. They're associating that with, right? So it's like they used all this Hollywood shit to actually get everybody to target anybody who's anything but this crazy, real authoritarian idea, the same way that Hitler was. Everybody had to be Christian. People don't realize that. They forget about that part of it too. That like everybody has to be this one way and everybody has to be this one religion and so people are afraid of like vaccine passports or passports. It's like I'm more afraid of spiritual passports. Like unless you're this, you're going to go to, and I'm ready to go into a fucking camp and I'll survive that fucking camp. I love The Great Escape. That was a great movie. I will dig a tunnel out of that fucking camp. Or like in 12 Monkeys, I will disappear and jump timelines. But that might be too much for some people to understand, you know?
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, fucking take me out. I don't care. That's the way I look at it. Like when the shit first started popping off with the vaccine and whatnot, like I was pre-warned of what the plan was. So I was totally ready. Fucking take it all then. Take it all. I don't need it. I'll go live in the woods, or you can take me out. I would rather you put a bullet in my head than fucking make me take that shot.
Yeah.
You know? Because if that's what it comes down to, I'll leave this planet. I'll fucking leave. I don't want to be here that bad. You know? So that's where I'm at with it. I ain't afraid of that.
Yeah, and there's one comment in here that I think is a good example, but I don't agree with it. But it's like, you only be happy until you've got a complicated and horrible illness. That's when you'll find happiness. It's like, if that's what your manifestation is, to find happiness, and that you wish upon others to have a chronic illness in order to find happiness.
Right, yeah.
I really think that you should be looking at what the fuck that you're doing.
If you had true happiness, you wouldn't have manifested that complicated illness.
Correct. Like, and we all have horrible situations in life, but it doesn't have to be a horrible illness. Like,
yeah.
It could be fucking traumatic situations in any place, and you never want to ask anybody else to. I can't wait till you go through your horrible chronic illness. Then you'll be happy.
Chronic illnesses are manifested by low vibration. They're manifested by low vibration. Truly, truly happy people don't get fucked up chronic illnesses. The people who get fucked up chronic illnesses are low vibrational, angry fucking people.
Yeah.
Like, that's all there is to it. It really is that simple. It's that fucking simple. If you're on a high vibration and you're happy, most of the time, you're not going to get sick.
I know.
The people that get sick are the people who are pissed off and angry and bitter and resentful. They're the people who are sick all the time.
Yeah. Or repressed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or feel stuck because they're too afraid to do what they really want in their life. Like, oh, I'm going to just stay in this marriage and I really am not happy. Or I'm going to, especially, you see it a lot, and unfortunate, and I'm not going against Christians, but people that go to church all the time, you see that because they feel like they have to do this thing that show penitence to the church and do all these things, and then they get torn up, and then they feel guilt for doing something like, I went out with my buddies for the weekend and I drank too much, or I did, right? And then the guilt and the shame over something that's really not guilt and shame. You see it all the time. Unfortunately, it's another weird part. America is over 70% Christian, yet we're the highest place of cancer. We're the highest place of heart disease. Mm-hmm. And then when you look at the numbers, the people who are Christian are the ones that fill that whole entire gap. Mm-hmm. So I guess praising Christianity the way it is, I'm not saying I'm against Christ. I'm saying, and God, I'm not against God. You all know I talk about God all the time. But why is it that those that follow that narrative of how to get to Christ or God are in the country that's the most of it and have the biggest weight issues, the biggest heart disease, the biggest cancer pre-COVID?
Because they're some of the most angry people on the planet. I was raised in that. I was raised in a Christian household.
Right.
I was raised by two very hardcore church-going, Bible-thumping Christians. And they are some of the most angry, judgmental, pissed off people all the time. Now, again, not saying that if you're a Christian, that means that you are Maybe you are, maybe you aren't. But from what I've seen, you know, in the Christian environment that I was raised around, all the ones that I saw were so pissed off. And yes, the majority of them had diabetes, heart disease. My grandpa, you know, he had diabetes, weight issues, because they're angry all the time and scared that they're going to hell, you know? Do what?
Yeah, scared that they're, you know, and that's the one place I don't agree with how let's call them the groomers, because, you know, that term's been used in child trafficking, and I'll keep that same term, but the groomers of Christianity have created this since Constantine of 325 AD, we're going to make you fearful of God.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a great manifestation tool. Make people afraid of God.
Well, people call themselves God-fearing, and they brag about it.
I know.
I'm a God-fearing, you know, because when you're afraid, you're obedient. That's why they program people to be God-fearing.
Right, because the only one that really truly fears God, because they're on the wrong side, is the devil or Satan or the dark or the reptilians. It's like, become a reptilian, join our church, fear God. Give us money. And we don't give you anything back. We don't give you any service back. And if you don't fit in and you're unable to live in the matrix society, well, then you can't really come in this church. We're not really here to help you. Like one of my favorite bands, Under Oath, used to be a Christian band, and then they left being Christians because it was like, didn't mean that they left their faith in God, but it was because the evangelical churches and all that, like, you have to look a certain way. You have to drive a certain car. You have to wear the kind of clothes that you need to wear. Mm-hmm. The second that you have a problem in your life, it's like, oh my God, did you see them? Oh my God. The judgment's higher from the people in the church than God.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yep. That would be the reason why. What you were saying a minute ago, why they, you know, most Christians, and we're the sickest nation. Yeah, that has a lot to do with it.
And part of the Nazi Party movement, the biggest part of it were all the churches, the Christians, and the Catholic Church too. The Pope it just got released. You could go look it up. All the letters between the Pope and Hitler. Like, you know, like, so Hitler carried that out for the church. And all the people within the church got rid of, all helped point out who wasn't in the church to help the SS find who were Jews that hadn't put on the star, were the churches. The same way that, who told you to get the vax? The churches. There was no pastors up there being like, there's some, very small amount, but most of them are like, go do the right thing. Go do what's right for your community. It's like they use the churches to funnel the matrix the hardest. And they're doing it right now, which is the scariest thing I think out there, especially when this is what they're doing. Like, you're not this, you're that, you're that. And throw the bad. And that's the next thing coming. You know, I don't agree with the wokeness, but the wokeness is going to shift to the right and religious, where it's like, you don't have a cross on? You didn't go to church on Sunday? You talk to that astrologer? You watch that astrology show? You watch that tarot channel? Canceled. It will happen this year too. So be prepared. It's already happening.
Well, it is what it is.
That was a good one.
Yeah.
But check us out, High Vibe TV, and check out Rich's channel, Rich Lopp, and he has an exclusive show in High Vibe you can watch every week. Same with me, and we got all these new things. I'm doing my Saturn Masterclass here on High Vibe starting on Wednesday. Rich has a show every week. There's just a lot going on. Check it out. Links are down below. You can get on Rich's channel down below, watch all of his readings. Anything else, man?
Not really. No. I'm just about ready to go home and get pumped up to get a bunch more work done. So.
Yeah, I got a reading right now, so.
Oh.
Back in the sack, back at home.
It's good, man. It's good. We need that time off sometimes.
Yep. All right, everyone. Be careful out there, but don't be scared.